Thanks for tuning in to Hobbs and Horror Movie Review Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Hobbs and Horror. I'm Eric.
I'm Magnum for you.
I'm Poochie Buns.
Alright, well I'm glad that we got that out of the way. So today's movie is...
You can be Poochie Buns forever.
Black Roses.
Yep.
Which with the Rocket IMDb rating of 5.1.
Which is solid, to be fair.
And I think it earned its 5.1.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
I'll start this off by saying that this is probably the least offensive of the movies that we've watched so far.
This is an 80s gem. This is one of those 80s gem movies that's just like if you missed it the first time around in the 80s, like Gavin hadn't seen it.
Yeah, I had not seen it.
But didn't it feel like, like one of those movies you missed out on?
I did, yeah. I'm seriously surprised that
and it is,
I knew nothing about it.
Because as we get older, it's really hard because you've seen everything.
Yeah.
From the 80s and stuff. It's like, I mean, at this point, maybe once every 5 years I'll come across something from the 80s that just passed me by, just went under my radar or whatever.
Yeah.
And I always really enjoy when that happens because it just, and a lot of them don't stand up or whatever to the test of time, but it's nice to see those gems every once in a while.
There's a lot that you haven't seen for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. So Gav, do you want to just tell us what this movie's about?
Sure. Actually, this plot is really simple.
Yep.
So there's a band, and the band is called Black Roses. Hence the title. And they travel from town to town, and they put on concerts. And the kids in town love the concerts because it's heavy metal. And this is the 80s, so that's, the cool thing. And the parents are concerned. And oddly enough, the parents might actually be right to be concerned because the band has very bad intentions for what they're going to do with these kids.
Yeah, so basically it's like all this shit that we heard of growing up, like when we were big into Marilyn Manson and even like before us, the generation before us, it was like Black Sabbath and stuff. There was always the parents that were saying, this is the devil music and they're they're just gonna brainwash your kids and, it's Satan working through these bands. And this is the concept of this movie is what if the parents were right? What if the churches were right? And there is this band that just goes around and everybody who listens to the music becomes possessed and wants to kill their parents. This is a great concept for a movie.
I'll agree with you. I disagree with the underlying I think that this movie, the whole time I watched this movie, I thought that this was kind of like a Doom Generation movie.
Really?
Where there's where there's an underlying meaning to it. And I think that this movie was just created to mock the stupidness of parents saying music is satanic and evil.
Well, I think it's just the fact that there were so many people that were because when we were talking earlier, we went to go to the Marilyn Manson concerts and stuff. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of people outside protesting and stuff. People saying you can come to Jesus and
and I think the movie
they kind of gave up on that.
Yeah. I think this movie was to mock those people. Yeah. That's essentially what behind it was that if a person that felt that way were to watch this movie, they would hopefully get the gist that, oh my God, this is so retarded that we would think. Yeah.
No, I'm gonna give it more credit than that. I don't think it's mocking. I think this is a satire. I think it's smarter than that. You got to put it in its time. This is the 80s, and in the 80s. There was this group, it was like a semi-government group called the PMRC, the Parents Music Resource Council. And it was run by Tipper Gore, Al Gore's wife.
Okay.
And they had congressional hearings, and Dee Snider of Twisted Sister had to testify, Frank Zappa had to testify. This was a big deal in the 80s that they legitimately thought that music was turning into just absolute garbage against the children. So I mean, I don't disagree about the Marilyn Manson thing, but this is even more 80s.
Yeah.
Because this was a big deal at that time.
Yeah.
And they thought Ozzy Osbourne was driving kids to suicide and stuff like that. So, like, I don't know that Marilyn Manson ever had to go testify before Congress or not.
No. I remember after Columbine, he had he did some interviews and stuff because there were a lot of people that blamed him for Columbine, but just because one of the kids happened to listen to Marilyn Manson.
Which, by the way, if people aren't familiar with that, like, look it up. It's hilarious watching senators like grill Dee Snider.
That's awesome. This is like when I was a kid. I saw this when I was a kid, and like I said, the only part I remember was that scene in the kitchen with the weird, long-necked monster thing. But the cover art is what I remember most of it. Like this was one of those movies, and for anybody who was around back in the 80s, you might remember some of the lower budget movies would really go all out with the box. Mm-hmm. The VHS box. They would really put a lot of effort into making it stick out so people would see it and want to rent it. Mm-hmm. And this was one of them that I remember because it had it literally stuck out of the box. Like the guitar on the front was like almost like bumpy, like it stuck out, and it had blood in it. It actually had blood in between the art and the box. So it was really neat, and that's what drew me to it. And then, this was one of those movies that I saw when I was younger. I really loved it, but I didn't remember much of it. I just remember really liking it. And then when I was like older, I went and tried to find it and figured out what movie it was I saw. And I think it still holds up.
I thought it was this is going to probably get my highest rating. So easily. Yeah. I
mean, granted, the special effects are pretty terrible.
But I
yes and no.
I mean, I shouldn't call them special effects. It's like the masks and the costumes and stuff are just kind of cheesy. But it's still it's fun.
I also think
terrible.
That because the costumes were cheesy, but they were well done.
Yeah.
Which tells me that they were intentional to be cheesy like that. And that just brings me back to the thing that they're kind of mocking the idiocy of people thinking that kids were going to start worshiping Satan because they listen to certain music.
Yeah.
I just think that this was just a big statement of, come on, people, wake up. What you're talking about is stupid.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm way off base on that. This is just a cheesy movie that was made. But I really feel like it's trying to state that like, come on.
It does it does point out the absurdity. Like, you watch this movie and it's like, is this really what you guys think is happening when people go to see the Beatles or whatever? Fuck?
Yeah, like you watch this movie and it's like
at the Beatles.
Right.
Like maybe. You can't really be worried about this actually happening because it's just idiocy.
And one thing I thought was really cool too is like that I just was reading the other day this big article about villains in movies drinking milk. That always, for some reason, there's villains drinking milk. And in this movie, there's a scene where the high school teacher that's kind of the hero in the movie and Damien, the head demon guy, are standing there and they're drinking milk for no reason at all. And they're not even at home. Like where do you find a glass of milk at a frickin' wherever they were?
Well, and I believe the lead singer just had a pitcher of milk there, right?
Did he?
He picked it up and he poured.
Yes, you're
the
right.
Guy,
there was a pitcher of fucking milk.
And he poured the guy a glass of milk.
Where do you get a pitcher? Where do you get the fucking milk? Where is this? How does this even happen? But it's true. Like, I never put that together in my entire life that villains in movies drink milk. And it's true. Like, apparently.
We're going to have to pay attention to
that. Yeah, let's to watch out for that one.
Mm-hmm.
I've never really thought about it. The only thing that comes to mind is Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah.
Because
I
don't know if Eric's familiar with Inglourious Bastards, but there's like the scene where Christoph Waltz is like sitting at the table and like the people are hiding right underneath the floor.
Yep, he's drinking milk.
He's drinking his milk.
There's that one, and obviously the most obvious one is like Clockwork Orange.
Oh yeah,
maybe that's what started it.
I'm sure it is.
Do you think that's where it started it? Because that was like 70s, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know if before that there was a lot of milk drinking.
You're totally right. Yeah, that's that's really milk drinking that.
Yeah, it probably just got like a buzz for being just so ridiculous that people just kept picking it up and kept reusing it in movies and stuff that. So, but okay, I'm curious. Did you guys because there was actually killing in this movie. It was nothing significant, but did you think the kill scenes were at all impressive, or were you just like...
You know, honestly, I think the kill scenes in this movie, there weren't many of them, but you don't notice it. Because there's a lot going on. There's a lot of cool shit. Like, it keeps you engaged. It's not like most movies, like if it were like most horror movies, if there's not a high kill count, I'm going to be complaining about it. Like, or if there's not a lot of gore or like... Because you're going to, like, especially a movie like this, you'd think there would be. But it doesn't really take away from it. Yeah. In my opinion.
And I would agree with that because, like, it's just, you're so kind of encapsulated during the whole movie about what's going to happen next to these kids. Like, the next concert they're going to go to. Yeah. You know, how is that going to screw with their heads? Because you can see as it steps along that they're just getting crazier and crazier from going to these concerts.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about the kill scenes, and they're really, I can think of 3. Yeah. But none of them are gory or anything like that.
No, there's the one where they cut away shoots. Before. Yeah. It's very 80s, right? That's a very 80s thing to do where they show the person going up about to kill a person and then they flash away and there's blood splattering.
I don't know if it's an 80s thing or just a budget thing.
It's a budget thing. It's a budget thing?
Yeah. Okay. That's why also, too, when the guy gets pulled through the speaker, I think you just see the shadow of his leg.
Yeah.
That's totally a budget thing. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, it's easier to show a few drops of blood being splashed on a wall for a gunshot than it is to show a guy getting the back of his head blown off.
Yeah, and I think the goriest thing in this whole movie was literally that when the woman, the teacher's wife, ex-wife, the one who was dumping him because he worked with kids and didn't... For some reason, that was a problem.
Was that the reason?
Yeah. She's like, you're wasting...
I thought you were going to do so much with your life and you just taught kids.
Oh, I guess I missed that.
Yeah. Like the whole scene when he goes to the house and then he's like telling her off and then leaves. But then she later on is in the car and for some reason, like, she looks behind her in the car, in the back seat, and there's one of his students, the one that wants to bang him. Yeah. And she's just sitting right there, and he's like, "Oh, hi." And
what are you doing back there?
What are you doing back there? You were one of my ex-husband's students. She doesn't seem concerned at all that she's sitting in the back of her car at all. Like, why are you here? But then
But she knows it's the kid that wants to bang.
Yeah.
Yeah. She knows which one it is.
Yeah. And then she just slits her throat. And that's probably the goriest thing we see is actually blood coming out of the...
Yeah. And even that's really quick.
It is. Yeah. So I got a question for you guys. I have an opinion on this movie. I love this movie, but I think this is a perfect example of a movie that suffered a little bit from the budget. I think this is a perfect example of a movie they could remake and do it well.
I could definitely see that because I think the concept behind this movie is phenomenal.
Yeah. Like if you took, and I don't know what band, maybe you guys have an idea of what band would be good to like be the band in this movie. Yeah. But imagine giving like the concept of this movie of real fucking demons that are like going town to town and trying to brainwash people's kids. I mean, it's timeless, first of all. Yeah. So you can remake it any decade and it would still hold. Mm-hmm. But also, if you just, like, gave it the big budget, we could see that like, this was a good movie without the kills. But imagine having the budget to really do this well, with, practical effects and whatever. What do you guys think?
I would agree. I mean, I always present it as, like, I always go at that, like, just because you give it a bigger budget doesn't mean it's going to get better.
That's true.
Because they could just fuck it up even worse.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think that this has everything there to be a timeless classic.
Yeah.
And I don't think that this movie is that. Yeah. But it could certainly, it has the right story to be that if somebody were to do it right.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that you would like need to remake it. Like, I don't think it that needs to be done. But if you did, I think you could probably make it a little better. And I'm thinking maybe this isn't what you're thinking. Maybe you're thinking, more modern day. But I'm thinking, put Steel Panther in there.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't matter to me. It's just, I think,
I mean. That would up the comedy element a little bit, but for me, I'm all about that.
Well, one thing that's always bothered me about remakes is that they always remake good movies. Like The Thing.
Right.
You can't remake The Thing and make it better than the original because the practical effects in the original are going to be better than anything they're going to do with CGI.
Right.
And, you know, as far as the tension and everything, like, that movie was perfect in every way, in my opinion. So, like, why don't they focus on movies that maybe missed the mark the first time or, you know, didn't quite, you know, could be a little bit better? Remake those movies, the movies that you can actually do something with.
Because the reason why they remake movies is because they want the built-in audience.
Yeah.
And The Thing has a much bigger...
That's true.
That
built-in audience.
Yeah.
I'm with you 100%. I've always said that too. I'm like, there's a million crap movies you could remake and actually make good, but they remake the good ones. But that's exactly why. Like, is Jackie Earle Haley a good Freddy Krueger? No, and no disrespect to him. He's a fine actor, but no. But they knew you put Nightmare on Elm Street on a poster, and you automatically are going to make a profit.
Yeah, I think they're really they're missing out by doing that. Not, you know, and I'm not just saying that as a horror movie fan that wants to see that, but because, like, if you can come up with a movie that's like most people have not seen Black Roses, okay? So Hollywood is starved for new ideas. If you were to take Black Roses and you were to make that into like a big budget, to get the guy who did It, the remake of It, or someone like that to do this movie, you would have shit tons of people there on opening day. Maybe not on opening day, but word of mouth would get around, and I really think they'd make more money by creating this new thing. That's my opinion, but I was just curious about that.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I wonder if they almost do that. They just don't use the name of the previous movie in it. Like, will somebody come along at some point in time, see Black Roses, really love it, and try to make it a new movie? But why call it Black Roses? Right. Because nobody's going to go see it because it's Black Roses. Yeah. So why not make it your own thing?
True.
Yeah.
So I think that probably does happen. You just don't realize it because you don't know what the influence of the movie that's being made is from, where it's from, I guess.
Hey, Jason.
Yeah.
have you seen Studio 666 yet?
I have not.
Okay.
I kind of want to, but I don't want to pay for it.
Okay. All right. Well, we won't talk about it then, but otherwise that would be a good thing to bring up just because it's another rock band demon movie.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask you about that movie because I know you saw it, and I know it's somewhat similar to this plot.
It's got some similarities, but it's not. They're in the studio recording an album, so there's no fans involved at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Huh. So, and you guys were talking last week about the Rock and Roll
Nightmare.
Yeah. What was that about? I've seen it, but I don't remember.
I really don't remember. I saw it, and I mean, and the main actor Thor is like super memorable. And yes, his name is Thor.
Nice.
But I don't actually remember what the plot is.
Okay.
So you can't really tell me, like, how does this stack up against the other rock and roll horror movies?
No. And I can tell you that one is better known.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And it's from the same guy as Black Roses.
Yeah.
So it's got that going for it, I guess. But I don't remember the plot that I could really tell you.
Maybe we should do the other one.
Yeah, I don't know why that one is better remembered. I don't know what the reason for that is, but
maybe
there's nothing wrong with Black Roses.
Maybe what they did, maybe he made Black Roses and realized he could make it better, and then he made the next one, and that one got really big.
Could be,
maybe.
You know.
Well, now I'm going to have to watch that because I don't remember. I know I've seen it, but I just don't remember it. So
yeah, and I know I've seen it just because I remember Thor, and again, that's not the character's name; that's the actor's name.
No last name, just Thor, or what?
His name is like Thor Michael something. Like he's got like a name, like a full name, but he just goes by Thor.
So I believe that it's technically my turn for the next movie because I was supposed to pick the last one.
Yeah.
So what if I pick the rock and roll one?
You can,
and we'll do that as our next movie, and we can see how they stack up against each other.
That'd be cool.
Pick whatever you want. Just don't pick Clifford.
Hey man, it's gonna happen at some point. I'm going to hold off on it a little while because pretty soon we got spooky season coming up in October, and I want to get.
Yeah.
I'm trying to save some of the better, more horror stuff.
Yeah,
for that.
Although keep in mind that we're recording this so far in advance.
Yeah, we're already in October right now.
Are we?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, shit. Happy Halloween, everyone.
I think actually this podcast will come out in November.
Oh, jeez.
So that's how far ahead we are right now.
Wow.
So
what do you guys think for a rating on this one?
Oh, who wants to go first?
I want Eric, because he said that might be the highest rated one, so.
yeah, I think I'm going to give this one a 6.5.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I really don't have anything. There was some cheesiness to this movie, but I don't really have anything bad to say about it. And most of the cheesiness, I think, comes from the fact that it is so 80s.
It is.
It is so 80s. And so it's probably not that cheesy if you don't view 80s movies as really cheesy, but I see 80s movies as extremely cheesy.
Sure. Wow. Now I'm
No, I hope you guys give this one a lower rating.
That'd be awesome.
Well, so that's the thing. You went 6.5, and I'm going 6.
Wow.
So
you just ripped a hole in reality, man.
Yeah, I don't know what happened this time, and not and it's not a bad movie. Like 6 is still a good rating, and I like the creature effects. I mean, they're budget limited, obviously, but I like what they did.
Yeah.
It's got the practical effects, it's got some clever creature design. I like that. I like the music. It's not necessarily my kind of music, but I think they nailed exactly what it was supposed to be for the time.
Absolutely.
I love the hero. I think the teacher is awesome. I know you were saying like he was like the
Tom Atkins.
The Tom Atkins, which is he totally is.
Yeah.
I mean, if that role had been played by Tom Atkins, I bet you this would be a cult movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like that's the difference between this and it being well known is it just didn't have a name attached to it.
And you wouldn't notice any difference if Tom Atkins was there. Like I could watch it again. Someone could replace that guy with Tom Atkins, and I wouldn't even fucking notice it.
Yeah,
they got the same mustache. I mean,
yeah, but I think it would just have a slightly better selling value, at least in retrospect. I don't know how big Tom Atkins was in the 80s, but now people think of him fondly. But the reason I don't go higher than 6 is just it's got sort of a blandness to it. And I don't know how to describe that. And I don't mean that to be insulting, but it strikes me as the kind of movie a year from now, I'm not going to remember it.
Yeah.
And because
I could see that.
Because as much as I enjoyed it and it's just, there's nothing where I'm going to be like, hey, remember that scene from Black Roses? Like, it's not going to jump out.
Yeah, there aren't any scenes that really do jump out in this movie.
Yeah.
There's not like the sleepaway camp scene.
Right.
Where it's like, oh yeah, everyone when they think of Black Roses thinks of that. There's nothing to think of.
Right.
It's just.
Exactly. Yeah, sleepaway, I mean, like, I'm partial to sleepaway camp. But even if I wasn't, or I guess I should say if I wasn't, I would say that it's not necessarily a better movie than this.
Yeah.
But it does have the very notorious end where you will never forget it as long as you live.
And I think if they were to remake it, they would have to get a scene like that to make it perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will actually agree with you 100%. That is the one thing that is missing from this movie, is something to truly remember. It's just solid all the way through.
I said, I think if you remade it, you'd have to play up the comedy elements of it. You'd have to do something where, like, they're wailing on the guitar, the dude's head blows off or something.
Yeah.
Like, and then you'd remember it. You'd be like, oh yeah, so when everyone's like getting killed by heavy metal music.
Like kind of like in Tenacious D and The Pick of Destiny.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, more horror, but yes.
We're here to fuck you in your ear pussies.
So yeah, I'm giving it not a low grade, but I can't give it a high grade just because I don't think it's going to stick with me the way that other movies, even crappier movies, stick with me.
Yeah. Now, I just fucking am amazed, though. I believe you gave, what did you give the head of the household a 9? And you give this movie a 6?
Did I give it a 9?
I believe I did, because I just edited the podcast.
I'm okay with that. See, I'm okay with that. Yes. I'm okay with that, because Head of the Family, obviously, on its face, is a worse movie. But
it has those scenes.
But I'm not judging it in that way. I'm judging it for me. And for me, Head of the Family has a special place in my heart because I first saw it when I didn't hate Full Moon yet. And I was like, this movie is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And like that really sold me, was how ridiculous it was. And now, like, if I had seen it for the first time, now I'd be like, this movie is stupid and it's slow and it's dumb. But it's got that where, and I'm sure when Jason gives his rating for Black Roses,
it's going to not be very objective. You're right.
Right. You're probably going to rate it higher than a 6 or 6.5.
Yep.
Partially because it's a movie that you remember as a kid.
Absolutely. And you know, when you were talking about Head of the Family, it made me think of like, we were talking about this off the podcast, but every one of these movies where there's like a female, like, or, you know, just like someone trying to seduce somebody, I would always fall for it every fucking time. Like in Head of the Family, when like the chick with the big boobs.
Yeah.
Like she came, I could know that they're probably going to kill me. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Which, by the way, no disrespect to that actress.
Mm-hmm.
I actually don't think she's that hot.
No, she wasn't. Yeah, so that one I might be able to pass.
So like her being like the sex appeal person in the movie, I was like, I don't know.
Yeah. So I honestly, I would give this one an 8, and only because like I would probably be where you're at if it wasn't for the.
You got to say what you just did.
What did I just do?
Listeners can't see you point.
Oh shit!
Yeah, I gotta say, I have no idea who you pointed at.
I would be where Eric is at. I forgot we're not just having a conversation here. Yeah, so I would be where Eric is at with the 6.5 if it weren't for my deep love for this movie, and that, you know, it's because, you know, first of all, like just the plot of this movie I think is brilliant. I think it's like just perfect, and I wish it would have been. I think it could be better, you know, obviously. That's why I think it should be remade. But I think as it stands for, like, you know, it's for an 80s movie, I think it holds up pretty well for, you know, a trash movie.
Mm-hmm. So, and honestly, I think if I had a connection to it from my youth, that would have probably knocked it up to a 7.5 for me.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, half the 6.5 that I give it is just because I like the concept.
Yeah.
You know, it's not cool. It's not about how good the movie is, because really, if you made it just about a stupid concept, I'd hate the thing.
Right.
But what saved it was the fact that it's such a cool idea.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
So.
Sure.
Yeah, so I'm going with an 8 on this one.
Right. Yeah, I'm holding firm on my 6, but maybe I would be willing to bump it up. I don't know. I can't do it. I just can't.
Wow, that's weird though, man. How many times is this going to happen?
I don't know.
Where I'm going to score higher than somebody else.
I don't know, but I don't know why I feel the way I do, because like the effects, and I really want to defend the effects. Like, I don't think they're that bad. There's things like the dude getting pulled into the speaker.
Yeah.
It's not great. I mean, obviously, they pull the camera away anytime anything is really happening because they can't really show it.
Yeah.
But, like, that reminds me of, like, the effects in Nightmare 3, Dream Warriors.
Okay.
Which, for my money, is one of the better in the series. I mean, some of the effects are, like, ridiculous in that, but it works.
Yeah, Dream Warriors is great for the effects, the practical effects. That's the one with the Roach thing, the Roach Hotel, right?
Yeah.
And was that the one also with a TV?
It's the TV with the arms and getting pulled into the TV. That's why it makes me think of that.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, I love that one.
And the effects in this are not great, but they're by no means like
they're not
offensive.
They're not terrible.
They're just solid.
For a no budget movie, I can't make a creature like that.
Yeah,
I really like the hand puppet that you pointed out was a hand puppet.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as you said it, I was like, yeah, that is a fucking puppet.
It's pretty clear that like all you can see is the head and the mouth is just going like this.
Yeah.
Like all you got to do is to keep your hand off the camera, and you're like good.
Yep. Yeah.
And I gotta say, like, because this movie came out in 1988.
Yep.
Okay. To me, I feel like the effects and stuff were pretty... Like, we say, oh, those are totally 80s effects.
Yeah.
But I would like to think that those effects are more early 80s and not later 80s. Like, the effects should have been better.
It depends who's working on it.
Yeah, and actually, one thing I would point out, too, is they didn't make the mistake of using some of the effects that the 80s did that didn't work at all, that don't stand up at all. Mm-hmm. Like you know, when they show lightning in 80s movies, or they show, like, a transformation, like even the Toxic Avenger I watched yesterday with my daughter. And we were watching, and I was like, you know, I mean, actually, that movie, the Toxic Avenger, like, I watched on Tubi, and for some reason, like, it holds up.
Is it edited on Tubi?
No.
Okay.
It's not. They show the full head crushing scene.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
But there's other things that are even more disturbing than the head crushing scene that I didn't notice. That, like, when the guy's lifting weights and he brings the thing down on his head, like, there's a thing that goes down his head, crushes his head, and you can see the tongue hanging out of the severed head, like the crushed in head and everything. Yeah. Looks very realistic. I was like,
this is weird because I feel like I've seen this Toxic Avenger.
But the head, you know, the head crushing scene, the only reason that's controversial is because it's a kid.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it isn't that somebody's head gets crushed. That's not the offensive part.
That's true. Yeah, yeah, they were pretty ballsy in doing that. But you know, like some of the things, like when he's transforming, they show it like the screen turns a bunch of different colors and stuff. Like, ooh, he's transforming. That's the 80s, you know, like that's what they used to do. And this didn't really have any of that, where it takes you out of the film because it's so cheesy.
Yeah.
And you know what? There's something I think could have made this movie better, too, is like you were talking about with the shadow, how they have the shadow when the guy's going into the speaker because they just didn't have the budget to do anything. And I think they did that because they didn't have the budget to do anything that looked good. Right. And I think this movie could have gotten a lot better if they would have just done some trauma, crazy, stupid, funny thing right there instead of the shadow. Mm-hmm. You know, because the shadow was just whatever. You know, and if you would have thrown some humor into it, it would have made it.
But they were smart enough to know their limitations too.
Yeah, but I also think that they were going for a serious tone with this movie. This was meant to be a serious horror movie.
Right.
It's just for us watching it now, especially like the acting, like the guy parkouring and jumping up on the light post and swinging around like a weirdo. Like, there was no reason for that. Yeah. Those were things that were just like honest failures of the filmmakers that ended up being really amusing and kind of funny and added just the right amount of humor to it that, like, for me, it was great.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I'd say it's a comedy in the sense that, like, the situation is funny.
Yeah.
Like, because it's so absurd, but it's clearly not intended to be.
No, they're playing it straight.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's all about all I got to say about this one.
Yeah?
I don't know.
All right.
All right.
I'm glad that I picked a movie that is
this is like the pride of Jason's life. Yeah. He's like, I picked a 6.5 for Aaron.
Oh, well,
holy crap.
I'm glad too, just because I hadn't seen it. And it's always a joy to see something for the first time that, you know, probably should have seen 20 years ago and didn't.
And the janitor is now knocked down to like number 3.
Yeah, because what was the other?
Was the one that you liked better than Phantoms? It wasn't Head of the fucking Family. It was,
no.
It was...
Night of Something Strange?
No, it was Doom Generation.
Doom Generation.
Yeah,
Doom Generation knocked it out.
That makes sense.
Yeah, we're all just biased on that one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So... All right, so we do have... What is the name of the next movie? Rock and Roll Nightmare.
I love how you can't remember when it was your movie.
Yeah. I would if I had your DVD case here, so I could just open it up and read it. But so we'll be back in 2 weeks with Rock and Roll Nightmare. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. See ya.
Thanks for tuning in to Hobbs and Horror Movie Review Podcast. Join us in 2 weeks for another exciting movie review.